And good evening and welcome to City Focus. I'm Marty OLSEN, your host, and tonight I'm delighted to have as my guest a candidate for State Senate on the Republican ticket, Jerry LABRIOLA. And Jerry, I want to welcome you to the program.
Well, it's great to be here, Marty. You know, we talked about me coming on your show just slightly after I got nominated in June, and I said, you know, let us get our campaign up and running, and don't worry, at some point I'd like to come on your show, and here we are. You know, my people had to talk to your people, and
Except the number one man band.
And we finally got it sorted out. I'm glad to be here tonight.
Well, that's terrific. And for those folks who may not know you, you're an attorney, and I've been advised that you work with your brother. Is that correct? And real estate law?
That is correct, Marty. I describe myself as a small town lawyer, and I'm in practice with my brother, State Representative Dave LABRIOLA, 20 years in the legislature. And my particular emphasis has always been helping first-time buyers buy and sell homes. It's very rewarding. I enjoy it. It's a flexible schedule, and I've been able to devote a lot of time to this campaign.
That's terrific. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I believe your father who was a Republican candidate for governor a number of years ago? Or is that an uncle? Or
No, that's correct. It's my dad, Jerry LABRIOLA, MD, was a state senator, and he ran for governor in 1982. He ended up being on the ticket with Lou Rome. And for those in your viewership that really are historians of Connecticut politics, it was a good race in 1982. My job was to drive the campaign bus. I actually put off taking the bar exam to get involved in that campaign 40 years ago. And they ran a strong race. They were running against Bill O'Neill, and they lost by maybe 5 or 6 points, but quite an experience. Thanks for remembering.
Yeah, well, I tried to do my research and homework, and actually I remember the name LABRIOLA before I met you through that. So how about that?
Exactly. You know, that's why it's so great to be able to come on the Marty OLSEN show, because you know you're going to have the due diligence that you provide your viewers, and I appreciate that.
Yeah. Now you're currently living in Old Saybrook, correct?
We've been there, going on 6 years. Always, came down to the shoreline every year. Enjoyed it so much. And then, we reached that point where Barbara and I were in Wallingford. She was the town clerk of Wallingford, very large town. She continued to be the town clerk after we moved and commuted up until after the presidential election in 2020. That pretty much that did in a lot of town clerks. It was quite an undertaking. But we decided to make the big move and to the shoreline area. Now Old Saybrook is our forever home. And we're so excited to be here. What I'm noticing from my campaign is I'm not alone. There are a lot of transplants that have discovered how beautiful it is in the region between New London and Old Saybrook and up into the beautiful country of Montville and Salem and Basra and all the towns in between, and they've made it their home also.
Well, I think that's terrific. Now, just for a little bit of background, you also served a stint as the party chair for the Republicans at the state level. Isn't that correct?
That is correct, Marty. A lot of my involvement's been behind the scenes. I've been a town attorney. I've been a chairman of a board of assessment appeals for many, many years. My wife just recently got elected the treasurer of Old Saybrook. As I said, my brother's in the legislature. My father was a state senator. But I've worked primarily behind the scenes. I think it's important to be active in the community if you can. And an opportunity came forward where I got to the point of being the state chairman of the Republican Party. I described that in the pre-Trump years. Things were a little bit different back then. It was about 10 years ago.
When did you serve? Just to refresh my memory, when you served as the state party chair.
Well, I was treasurer of the party for 6 years, from 2006 to 2011, and I was state chairman for 2 full terms, 2011 to 2015. right before things started to take a turn, and I gave my 4 years, and I pretty much backed out of politics for a while. We made our move down here, and we were pretty comfortable, and I really had no design or intention to be sitting with you right here.
In this capacity.
I was as surprised as everyone that Paul Formica elected to retire. What a good man. What a great mentor he's been to me, and I really am blessed with his strong support. But he decided to retire, and the way it's been described to me is he wanted to find a successor that was kind of cut in his mold, someone who was middle of the road, common sense. There's a few of us left, and he kind of sought me out and asked me to run, and I stepped up, and here we are today.
No, that's true. Paul's done a terrific job. I think that all kudos will go to he has earned and deserves for his service through not only the state but his community. He's first selectman, and he's
It's a total of 31 years in public service. It really is extraordinary. So I've described myself as a Paul Formica Republican, and I'm comfortable in doing so. If the folks watching here, does this run in New London?
Yes, it does. It runs
in the great city.
East Lyme, Waterford, New London, and right up the 395 corridor up to Plainfield.
Fantastic!
Except for
wow.
Norwich.
What a footprint you've found a way to maintain. If your viewers are comfortable with that standard of representation that they received from Paul Formica, there'll be complete continuity with Jerry LABRIOLA.
Well, that's I think good to know. I know Paul. I think for a Republican to be successful in this district requires a significant support outside of New London. To be very blunt, I mean, New London's a pretty heavily Democratic community, and you try to, the odds of you being to win New London are not high. But if you can cut your losses, so to speak, that gives you a better opportunity to achieve success.
I've enjoyed my campaigning in New London. I like the vibe of New London. I'm
feeling
it.
I live there.
You live there, and
I have served there.
And you have served, and I stood at Nathan Hale School with you on primary day, greeting some voters. I attended the We Are New London parade the other day, and felt like I just fit in perfectly. And I like the vibe. I like the potential. Everybody's always talks about New London's potential, but sometimes people are frustrated that it never becomes realized. I think I can come in with some fresh eyes, some new ideas. There's a vision there that I would have to be supportive for New London. But you're absolutely right. It is an 8-town district, Marty, and it goes from New London to Waterford, to East Lyme, to Old Lyme, where I just came from the fire prevention night in Old Lyme, and I enjoyed being there with the first responders. I'm a big supporter of first responders, into Old Saybrook, and the 3 northern towns of Salem, Montville, and Basra is in the district. So, there's no one population center that dominates. There's 100,000 people in the district, and New London is 28,000. So it really is, the campaigning effort has to be spread around.
Absolutely, to be successful. And like I say, before we came on the air, that feedback I'm getting is that you've been out and about and pumping a lot of hands, and you're working hard. So that's important. Can't do it sitting home, that's for sure.
When you run for state senate, it has to be a multifaceted campaign. We are emphasizing a lot of my personal contact with voters, and I think it's essential. When I go to people's doors, there's no real substitute for that. I'm talking to them, I'm listening, letting people, I give out my cell phone, I let them know I want to be a strong advocate for the middle class. I want to be a strong voice up in Hartford for their town. I believe in local control. The job of a state senator is to be helpful, bring resources to the district, try to improve people's quality of life, Marty. And before we go any further, I'd like to mention to your viewers that if they would like the opportunity to follow the campaign a little closer, I would ask them to go on our Facebook page, LABRIOLA for Senate. You can go right in the search box there, just type in LABRIOLA for Senate. Please go on my page, like and follow it, and you'll get to kind of see the daily diary of what we're doing, where we're going, and we have some videos, and we're talking about our platform and our devotion to the district. At the same time, we also have a website, Marty, LABRIOLAforsenate.com. And on that website in particular, there is a pretty comprehensive interview with the Connecticut Examiner, where there's about 8 or 9 very relevant questions that pertain to the district, where I answer those questions. And so if folks want to drill down a little bit more, that's one way you can do it. But of course, watching the Marty OLSEN show is probably
that's tough.
That's the top that's the top rung.
Have you had an interview yet with the day paper, the editorial staff, or with David Collins, a columnist?
I've had a chat with Dave Collins, and it was a good chat. And I will be doing a sit down with the day in the coming days. I think Friday morning, actually. Is this live?
We're live.
We're live, baby. Yeah, so I don't know if I can talk in real time or this is taped.
This is real time.
Yeah,
and folks, with that, if you'd like to call in and talk to Jerry, this is a good opportunity to do so. We do accept phone calls.
Sure, listen,
and
it's your gig
if you've got any questions or comments or thoughts, this is a good opportunity to chime in and contribute. So, but I think that what you're doing is terrific, and I think with the tenor of the national issues ought to be helping your campaign, and I think Republicans throughout Connecticut. Just the between inflation and the rising gas prices, and wait till people start having to put oil in there for home heating oil. I mean, these prices are going nuts.
Yeah,
and these are all attached to the president and the Democratic Party.
Look, I mean, everyone is dealing with sky-high taxes, runaway inflation. There's public safety issues, no doubt. You mentioned gas prices. They subsided a little bit, and they could be, possibly turning the other direction. But I think much more profound or concerning to folks is home heating energy costs. That is what I hear so much about, and it's only just starting to hit home. So, and we could talk about electric rates with Eversource. We have Millstone, where the promise of Millstone and the power purchase agreement, I think, has been realized. They've done a terrific job, and we have a great kilowatt per hour cost. The problem is the mandates that the state of Connecticut put on how rates are determined. So when you get that good rate and you get to what Eversource has to do and is mandated, you have these skyrocketing electric bills. So I hear a lot about electric bills, home heating oil, natural gas, and people are just now starting to have to fill those tanks, and for what has been predicted to be a cold winter. So these are things where I would be a fighter for trying to find a way to reduce those costs.
Now, would it be energy be a committee that you'd want to serve on? I believe Paul serves on the energy committee.
I believe he did also. Look, renewable energy is the promise of the future, but affordability right now is probably the key. What is the rate? What do folks have to pay? That's what I'm going to be focusing on, Marty.
Yeah. Well, the green stuff is not sustainable at the moment. I mean, the technology is not there to be competitive in the energy market.
It's a new technology, and it's exciting. And I'm an optimist. I like to look forward, and I can see the promise of it. We could have wind turbines assembled in New London, and wind farms way out there off of Nantucket, and then have that power brought into Millstone, and then Millstone will be the carbon-free energy hub of New England. It all sounds great, right? But can it be affordable, to your point? To folks right now in the here and now. That's what I'll fight for.
Yep. Now, what do you envision the election's coming up so quickly, but what are the prime issues facing not only the 20th district, which is critically important because that's who you want to represent, but the state of Connecticut as well? Because when you get up to Hartford, you're playing ball with everybody. I mean, it's the entire state. It's just not your own home base.
Yeah, I feel like I can hit the ground running, Marty. I've been in the halls of the Capitol, kind of know my way around, so it's not going to be on the job training. I want to point out also, I wanted to weave this in earlier.
Sure.
And, I am endorsed by the Republican Party, but I'm also endorsed by the Independent Party because I will be an independent voice for this district up in Hartford. And that's very important, that people know that they can find me on two lines on the ballot. Senator Formica was not on that independent line in 2020, but I will be. Some folks may feel more comfortable voting for me there, but they have that opportunity to vote for me in two places. Listen, what I talk about when I'm at people's doors, we get a chat going, but I want to do everything I can to keep taxes low. Most of the taxes that people feel the burden, for which they feel the burden, are property taxes. And we have the highest in the nation. Some people say we're in the top three. I think we're in the highest property taxes, and that's all the state mandates into the towns in the city of New London that are unfunded. That's a big factor. So we have that's an area where I'd love to bring down or hold the line on property taxes. There's a lot of people on fixed income where it's very, very tough. I want to keep the streets safe, streets and schools safe. My daughter's a second grade teacher. I care a lot about education, and I care about the safety and the security in our schools. Not for nothing, I heard recently about a parking problem at Nathan Hale School in New London. It's a travesty. I'll fight to try to solve that problem for the parents. I want to preserve our beautiful environment. Boy, do we have a beautiful environment in the 20th Senatorial District. I'll fight to preserve that. Those are the big issues right now of the day: affordability, high inflation, helping people with not only just improve their quality of life, but just try to get by during tough times.
Now, your opponent, who is currently serving on the New London City Council, and this is her second term, not concurrent, has a record of being, how should I be, charitable, a radical left. You bring up public safety. A year ago, the City Council voted to rescind an ordinance that mandated a level of staffing for the police department. And this council voted to repeal that. And she's also the chair of the local Democratic Party and managed to get the party to endorse that action. And the issue went to referendum, and it was soundly defeated. The public wanted to keep that mandate in place because there's a concern with the folks that want to go defunding the police, that by removing that mandated level, that it would give the council carte blanche to just continue to shred the police department, which commenced with Darrell Finenzio about 10 years ago. And she led the parade. And I'm not sure if you're aware of that or not, but I think you should be. And she's not what I'd call a real supporter of the police and public safety in general.
Well, I'd like to just say that I've been endorsed by the Fraternal Order of Police. I certainly know about what you just described. My opponent, the record's clear. My opponent found herself in the defund the police crowd, whether you want to call it destaffing or defunding the police. Luckily, folks rose up. They forced a referendum, and it was a resounding victory to overturn the city council's decision, which also was supported by the Democrat town committee, which she was the chair of. So that record is pretty clear, no matter what she wants to say now. She certainly has a record of being supportive of tax increases. That record is crystal clear. I don't think it's indisputable that she would have no problem.
She's on the record with that.
Yeah, she would have no problem.
In a re-election campaign a few years ago, when asked at a debate, she was the only candidate, I might add, that said, "I will raise your taxes."
Yeah, so I think she will find herself in the hip pocket of the far left progressives in Hartford, and we could certainly expect her support of increased taxes, which would fall on all of us here in the 20th Senatorial District. I think it's clear that she was in stark contrast with Senator Formica with regard to the power purchase agreement to save Millstone. She can say whatever she wants to say now, but that record is also very clear, and I think that was a dangerous approach at the time, because had Dominion called the bluff of those folks saying that plant could have been closed and 2,000 jobs could have been lost. Not to mention that Millstone represents a big chunk of Waterford's tax base. We are doing this TV show in the town of Waterford, just barely, and that would have been devastating, I think, to the region. So these are not things we're making up or extrapolating. This is the record. So I'm just talking about facts in the record. I think, yeah, your viewers, the voters, are going to have a real clear choice to make. I mean, this is not like we're close on the political spectrum. I'm a centrist, middle of the road, common sense, and my opponent is more to the extreme.
I concur. Absolutely, and I think we need to continue to pound that home. That's, I think, a key point, and we can't allow her to try to position herself as being in the center, because she's not. Not even close. How do you? There's a couple of Republican reps in the district, Carney and Holly Cheeseman. Holly was here last week, and she'll be back next week. As a matter of fact, she's. Next week will be a political show. Last week was in her role as the executive director of the Niantic Children's Museum. You've got a good working rapport with our fellow Republicans in these towns within the district?
Look, I'm prepared to work with all of the municipal leaders in the 8-town region and with our other elected representatives to Hartford, regardless of party. I am not afraid will not be afraid to reach across the aisle to seek bipartisan solutions. I don't really care who gets the credit. Why don't just get the job done for the towns? I have a very strong working relationship with the 5 Republican First Selectmen, Carl Fortuna, Tim Griswold, Kevin Seary, Rob Brule, and Ed Chmielewski from Salem. But I will still work with the CEOs of New London and Montville and Basra, all for the common good of our citizens and our residents of the 20th Senatorial District. Yeah. With respect to the state representatives, I was at Holly Cheeseman's gala for her Children's Museum, which was a wonderful event in Niantic a couple of weeks ago. I find her to be a wealth of information, and she just knows her policy as good as anyone. And she's so dedicated to her level of representation. She's so dedicated to her job and her representation of her constituents in East Lyme and Salem, and now Montville. She now has a little bit more territory. That's Holly Cheeseman. I think the world of her. Devin Carney, I was just with earlier tonight. Of course, the grandson of the great Art Carney from the Honeymooners days, and Marty, we're both kind of old enough to remember the Honeymooners. So Devin is fantastic and dedicated public servant. And then you left out Kathleen McCarty, who is a good friend of mine in Waterford, who knows more about education than I'll ever dream about knowing. She's dedicated to that issue, and Holly is very much dedicated to the budget. We have a strong team. The voters of the 20th District can go into the voting booth, and they're going to have the opportunity to vote for some great public service servants with tremendous experience. And and I hope they don't forget me on line 4, B, and C. And I think I can be just as strong an advocate as you get from Devin Carney, Holly Cheeseman, and Kathleen McCarty.
Well, I think that's terrific, and I applaud that. Have you had an opportunity to campaign at all with Bob Stefanowski?
Have I had it?
Yeah.
Frankly, not really since I got my nomination. I've seen Bob a few times. There's 36 Senate seats in the state of Connecticut, so he's all over the place. I think he's been in the district a few times. I know he's been in New London. He's done a press conference. So sometimes we haven't synced up. I've actually seen Ned Lamont in Old Saybrook at the Kate Gala, and we chatted a bit. So, when you're running for office, Marty, you know this. You put your blinders on, you run, and if you see your colleagues, great. But you gotta, in my case, meet the voters.
That's what you got to do.
Get known. Let people know that that I am hopefully the successor to Paul Formica, who most people hold in high regard, and he's endorsed me. So we make that very clear on the trail. Many people have said to me, if Paul says you're okay, then you're okay with me, and that's one way to advance our campaign. It's a big constituency to run for. And, I'm just focusing on what we can do to help people and how we can be extremely competitive in this race. And we're emphasizing all the things, my levels of experience in municipal government and what I can bring to the table.
Mm-hmm. Now, what is your take with the Connecticut Port Authority, especially as it deals with the state pier and some of the stuff that's been reported extensively by David Collins today, who I frequently disagree with, but on this particular issue, I think he's been on the mark more often than not.
Well, to me, the state pier is another one of these opportunities that the city of New London has, and really the whole region has, to help with economic growth. I'm very pro-business, pro-small business. There's a lot of small businesses in New London that are doing okay, and some are not doing as well. I think they need an advocate, someone who is a small businessman like myself, and is pro-business, pro-economic growth. When you look at the state pier, you see all the potential. Oh, wow, we could be assembling these wonderful machines, and we could have all these welding jobs, and we can help with the wind farms, and there's going to be tons of jobs. But before we get to that, right, I mean, there are serious questions that need to be addressed, serious allegations. So there are pending investigations. There are allegations of corruption, fraud, cost overruns. Where did all the money go? Sometimes you have to follow the money. So before we can realize the promise of what the state pier can bring to the region, we can't just sweep this under the rug. We have to find out what's going on. And you're right, Dave Collins has been pretty good on some investigative reporting in this area. So I hope we can get past all that. At minimum, as a new state senator, I would be calling for much more stringent oversight of the state pier and all of its doings and dealings. But I'd be very happy if all of that can come to a head at the first opportunity, and we can move on with the good potential that the state pier offers us.
Okay. Now, when elected, what's the your primo issue that you would like to see addressed up in Hartford?
Well, right now, I mean, everybody's coping with tough times with affordability. I mean, we've had skyrocketing costs that we're facing, whether it's grocery costs, energy costs. We've had mortgage rates double. We've had the stock market take a hit. We are going through a correction in many ways, and with a potentially looming recession, right? I mean, a state senator does not have executive powers, and I'm certainly not going to be I'm not the chairman of the Federal Reserve, but there are looming concerns, and we are sitting on, it's kind of a moving target. I'm told $3 billion up to $6 billion of surplus of the people's money. So right off the bat, some broad-based tax relief would probably be very, very welcome to folks during some upcoming tough times. We talked about the high costs of home energies bills that people are going to be facing. That would be a priority. Public safety. The police accountability bill. Everyone needs to be accountable in their job, Marty. You do, I do, I'm an attorney. If I screw up, I got to be accountable. But that bill was rushed and was pushed through the legislature and voted on at 3 a.m. without any involvement of law enforcement, any input at all. It's been a net negative for police retention, for police recruitment. At minimum, modifications to that bill are in order. And certainly with respect to New London, it would be nice to get that staffing level up to 80 police officers where they want it to be. And I've talked to some in the police force there, and some officers. They're all officers, but lieutenants and captains. They'd like it to be even higher to do a better job. Yeah. So that's public safety. That's important. There's a myriad of issues. We can go on for hours about all the issues that need to be tackled.
Yeah. Well, the thing that I think folks have got to be cognizant of is how quickly things can slide. Now, as far as staffing, now the year I served as mayor of New London, which was the last one before we changed to our current elected mayor, we had 95 police officers. And we changed our government and the new mayor to administration, and we lost a third of our department. And we've been hovering around low 60s ever since. And it didn't take long, and it's very, very challenging to hire police officers in the best of times, because you just can't put up a we're hiring sign on the door of the police department and slap a gun on them and a uniform and send them out. I mean, you've got to go through the academy, and there's an expense and training and all sorts of stuff before you see new officers hit the road. And it's very, very challenging to rebuild, time-consuming. That's where I'm trying to go with this. And the critical need. I mean, that's a big issue in New London. I'm not so sure is how much in these suburban communities, if it's of the same nature. You're out there and talking to folks, but they have different issues, I'm sure.
Well, they do. In particular, New London is, that's our urban center of the district. And there are a lot of people that pass through New London. There's commerce, there's visitors. And public safety, I think, is essential to the growth of New London. So why would you be at 60 police officers when you're supposed to be at 80, and possibly even in a time maybe when the population was even less, it was at 96, as you just mentioned. What I would do is fight for the resources to make sure we can have the proper staffing levels with the men and women in blue, which I support so much, and other first responders. I was just, as I said earlier, at a fire prevention event in Old Lyme with a lot of EMTs and volunteer firemen and women, and I thank them all for their volunteerism and their great public service and what they do for their community. So first responders are a top priority to me to support them and be there for them and get the resources. And it's not just resources to pay people, it's resources to train. So they're trained to do their job in a way which will best serve the folks in the community. It's going to be a big priority. I'm not in the defund the police crowd as my opponent is, and the voters can count on me that I will put their public safety not only on their streets but for their school children and in their schools as an utmost top priority.
I think that's a good thesis, good theme. I like that. That I think will resonate throughout the district. That's good stuff. With education, again, New London is dealing with new schools as well as a magnet school district, and which was initiated about 10 years ago now. And I think if you got an honest assessment from our local school board and school administration in relation to academic achievement, that we're not necessarily meeting our goals and objectives. Is there things that you feel that can emanate out of your position as a state senator to kind of jumpstart that type of stuff? And you mentioned that your wife is in education as well.
Yeah, let me just clarify that. My daughter.
I'm sorry.
My daughter is a second grade teacher at a charter school in New Haven. It's a tough gig, but she loves it. My mom was in the system for 30 years, is still drawing a pension. So, education is a top priority for me. Not only teaching, but making sure we have security within our schools. I'm going to need to study the magnet school aspect a little bit more, which you just mentioned. But, I'm kind of a traditionalist when it comes to education. Reading, writing, arithmetic, that's what I learned, and I'm sure you did, Marty. It got me through college and law school. I did just fine. I believe very much in local control, not liberal members of the the Department of Education in Hartford, basically bureaucrats from Hartford telling our school systems what they need to do, what they need to teach. I think it's important in all of the 8 towns that it's the parents, the residents of the towns, the elected members of the Board of Education who are accountable every 2 years. They pretty much have to run. They should be setting educational policy in their towns as they see fit. My job as a state senator is to be helpful, be supportive, and help bring the resources to a school district, to a city or a town. That's how I look at things. It doesn't have to be any more complicated than that.
Mm-hmm. In the basics, reading, writing, arithmetic, do you have any strong feelings regarding critical race theory or the 1619 project being integrated into our schools?
I think I'll leave it to what I just said. It's pretty much it implies my feeling regarding those areas. Let's educate the kids with what's worked for decades and decades and made America great. And I don't have to really go any further than that. But liberal bureaucrats in Hartford dictating what we should be doing in Old Saybrook or New London or Salem doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense to me. However, I'll fall back to the same thing I said earlier. I believe very much, whether it's housing policy, whether it's a decision of whether you want a cannabis dispensary, or how you want to educate your kids, I very much believe in local control in the 20th Senatorial District. That's the best government, when it's closest to the people, and when our towns when our residents within our towns make the decision, that's when I can snap to action and be helpful, help get resources to the district.
As you've been campaigning, because I think I like this local theme a lot, is that coming out of COVID, how are you finding, A, the campaigning, and B, people responding to you, banging on their door and that kind of stuff? Are there still a level of paranoia, or are people warmly welcoming you to the door and want to talk to you and find out what you're all about?
It's a little bit more the latter. But, tying it back into the pandemic and education, I mean, in a lot of ways, our kids are a year, 2 years behind in their educational growth, and so there's some frustrated parents in that regard also. In terms of campaigning, it's a mixed bag, but for the most part, I'm getting a very, very good response. People want to talk to me. They want to meet me. I wear a badge that maybe disarms me a little bit, the Jerry LABRIOLA for State Senate. Knock on the door, usually have an aide with me or someone to help point me in the right direction. And we have a nice chat. I tell them what I support, ask them usually if there's a big issue in their mind, and then I listen. And so I hear all kinds of things. And, there's some paranoia still. But, and there's, believe it or not, there's a percentage of people that answer the door and they won't open it anymore because they have COVID. Uh-huh. So we talk through the glass. I have never met so many dogs in my life.
I think everybody in New London has a dog. When I've gone door to door, and I think I've knocked on every door over campaigns in the city.
And so
I have a lot of dogs.
They're fantastic, but when they hear that knock or the doorbell ring, they can get pretty excited. Yeah, but it's been a fun process. I really have enjoyed the one-on-one contact with voters. I think, as I said, I think it's invaluable. I'm learning a lot by talking to people and listening, which is critical. Running a campaign is multifaceted. You have to be here, be there. You get tugged and pulled. You got to fill out 60 questionnaires. You got to raise money. Initially, the first 2 months of a campaign, a lot of your viewers don't realize you got to put your head down and raise in small increments a lot of money and get a lot of signatures. So you really can't even come up for the light of day for 2 months while you're trying to get qualified to get the funding. So that's why.
So you've qualified for the public.
I qualified for the program back in August, but it took a good 2 months of work. A lot of people are like, "Whoa, where's your campaign?" Well, we had to do that first. So it's a lot. It's very interesting. I have definitely noticed certainly a big contrast to behind the scenes politics as compared to being a candidate on the front lines, and I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, I did a 2-year stint many years ago as local town chair, and it's a job I would never want to do again. I like serving the community at the legislative level and trying to solve the community's problems. In your case, it'll be the district and the state's problems. To me, that's fun.
I think all my fellow, either whether it's state chairman or local town chairman, in either party, you typically get blamed for everything and get credit for nothing. But other than that, it's wonderful.
Well, I'm excited for your campaign as it's been outlining. I just dropped my mic here, so it's there we go. I think we're reattached here. Thank you. And I think you're bringing a level of energy that I hope that you're able to touch a lot of people between now and Election Day. I think they'll be positively reinforced that you're a good man, good candidate, and will do well for our district.
Thank you for saying that, Marty. There's 34 days to go. We have a lot of opportunity to continue to get our message out. I'm a middle-of-the-road, common-sense candidate. I'm a Republican. I'm also on the independent line. I care a lot about what I'm taking on, and I plan to be extremely dedicated, if I'm lucky enough to win this race, to serving all of the people in the 20th Senatorial District without regard to party. I put people ahead of politics, and I don't get hung up on the R&D label thing. And I've had many discussions with folks in New London, and yes, you can cross over and vote for me. You can do it. You can still vote for a lot of Democrats, but if you like me and you think I'm a good guy, come on over, and you'll be happy you did.
Yeah, well, I mean, Republicans can get votes in New London. I mean, I've been elected a number of times. Rob Pirro, Adam Spracacci, Paul Formica has run strongly in New London. Andre Baumgartner won as a Republican for state rep many years ago. It looks like we may actually have a call here.
Great.
Is that for us, guys? No, it's not flashing, so we'll
Now, let me also say that we touched on this earlier. It's a district where the population is fairly well dispersed around. So, I think of you as a New London guy, Marty. So we've been talking a lot about the city, but the East Lyme, Waterford, the population of those two towns exceeds the population of New London, and they are fascinating communities, which I've enjoyed campaigning in, and I will be a strong advocate for those towns just as well. I will partner with Rob Brule and help him do all the things he's trying to do to make Waterford a better community, and the same thing with Kevin Siri in East Lyme. East Lyme is north to south one of the biggest towns I've ever seen, from the Niantic region all the way up to Flanders and above. And Waterford envelops New London. It's huge, huge area, and with all kinds of things going on. Fascinating community. Want to work hard for the folks there. And so it goes all the way through. I spent time in Salem the other day, and I'd invite anyone that hasn't been up to that beautiful community. I'll be there at their Apple Fest at the end of the month. And we talked before we went on air, we touched on the fact that I'll be at the Elks Club for Italian Night in New London.
On Saturday.
On Saturday, honoring Senator Paul Formica and John Sadie.
Yep. And we have a call.
Okay.
Let's go to the phones. Good evening, you're on the air. Well, let's try this one. Good evening, you're on the air.
Oh, hello there. Mr. LABRIOLA? I'm having trouble trying to hear you. Yeah, I'm getting the feedback. This doesn't work. I was just wondering if you're going to come to New London and knock on my door. I'd like to talk to you.
Well, sir, thank you for phoning in. It's Jerry Labriola, and I just want to get that pronunciation right. I would love to knock on your door. If you could leave your address.
I know who it is. So.
Okay, good. I would love to, and we could have a chat. We're spending a lot of time in all 8 towns. I am not singling out or skipping any town in particular. I've walked doors in every town in the entire district, and I would love to come see you and talk to you.
Okay.
Thanks for calling in.
Okay, Marty knows I'm here.
Yes, you are, and he's a good man, our caller, and he's be time well spent to go down and say hello to him.
Fantastic. Spread the word, okay? Talk me up.
Okay.
Larry, thank you for calling.
Thanks, Larry.
Bye.
Bye-bye. He's been very active in the community for an extended period of time, and he likes to hold the political class's feet to the fire, which I admire.
Fantastic. Yeah, get me his address and we'll stop in.
We'll do that. I'm just trying to. We're getting close to the end of the program. Believe it or not, time flies when you're having fun here. If there's anything in particular that you'd like to kind of make sure we get out to the public domain here before we have to wrap up.
I definitely want to thank you for the opportunity to come on your show. It's everything I expected and then some. You're a great interviewer, and you are well versed in the issues and with a lot of firsthand experience in politics, particularly in the city of New London. So I've enjoyed chatting with you. I think we've covered a lot of ground, Marty. The nice thing about wrapping this up is I could finally go home and have dinner.
Well,
because
me too.
When you're on the campaign trail, I've lost a few pounds already, I will tell you that much. And it's a different lifestyle when you've got to cover 8 towns. But I enjoy it, and we'll get up tomorrow, and we'll just get back out there. The calendar keeps filling up. There's all kinds of events, indoor, mostly outdoor. Some meet and greets are being arranged. We're trying to do our best to give voters an opportunity to get to know who I am with mailings. And we have radio ads, and we have We have a billboard. I'm going to tell one funny story for your. We do have one billboard which was extremely inexpensive. It's on. We have a digital billboard in Waterford, but that works fine. This billboard, which and I don't get in the weeds on procuring things like this, but I was told we got a billboard in New London, but I couldn't believe how cheap it was, and it's in the one of those rotaries by Pequot with Willits comes down.
Yep.
And it's a wonderful billboard, but the reason it's so cheap is you can't see it because it's covered by trees. But after the leaves turn, in the final week or two, it's going to be a home run billboard. So I invite my friends in New London to keep an eye out for my billboard behind all the leaves, and pretty soon we are hoping. Now I know why it was so cheap, but it's going to be great. If folks need a sign, if they you can get through to the campaign. Are we wrapping?
We're wrapping up quick here.
Okay. Go on LABRIOLAforsenate.com and you can find a way to get in touch with us.
Very good. I want to thank you. Tomorrow morning I'll be on Lee Elsey, folks. 6:30 in the morning, 94.9.